The morning sun of 7 Station rose through the massive windows of the Galactic Defense Academy. Cadet Min stood in the assembly hall with hundreds of other cadets from across the galaxy. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few glowed softly in the dim light. He was one of only 15 humans in the entire academy. Min was not special by human standards. He was average height, average build, with dark hair and quiet eyes. Back on Earth, he had been a recreational runner who enjoyed long trails through the mountains near his home in Korea. Nothing about him suggested he would become a legend. Beside him stood his friend Wu, a tactical specialist with sharp eyes that missed nothing. On his other side was an engineering student who could fix anything with wires and circuits. The three humans stuck together in an academy that often treated them as the weakest species. At the front of the hall stood Instructor, a massive warrior with 4 powerful arms and deep purple skin covered in battle scars. His species was known throughout the galaxy as the greatest warriors, could lift 10 times their body weight and fight for hours without stopping, had made it very clear that he thought humans were too soft for military service. "Attention!" His voice boomed across the hall. Every cadet snapped to attention. "Today begins the trial of attrition. This test separates the worthy from the weak. You will run continuously through varied terrain while completing tactical objectives. You will carry full combat gear weighing 30 kilograms. You will not stop until your body forces you to stop." A nervous murmur rippled through the cadets. The trial of attrition was legendary. It had broken the spirits of countless students over the years. Most species could not last more than 6 or 7 hours. The Academy record was 12 hours, set by a warrior decades ago. "The course covers 50 kilometers of rotating terrain," continued. "Desert, mountain, swamp, ice field, and forest. It repeats until you collapse. There is no shame in stopping. There is only shame in not trying." His 4 eyes swept across the crowd and landed on the human section. "I expect our human cadets will learn valuable lessons about their limitations today." Min felt Wu tense beside him. She wanted to prove the instructor wrong, cracked his knuckles nervously. Min simply breathed slowly and thought about the mountain trails back home. 50 kilometers. He had run farther than that many times for fun. Among the other cadets, Min recognized several faces. There was a towering who stood 3 meters tall with muscles like steel cables. The species was famous for incredible strength, could probably tear a door off its hinges without trying. A female stretched her long limbs gracefully. Her species had lightning-fast reflexes and could run at speeds that blurred to the human eye. For short distances, no one could match her. A telepathic floated slightly off the ground using mental powers. His large head contained a brain twice the size of a human's. They were masters of mental discipline and could ignore pain that would cripple other species. "You have 1 hour to prepare," announced. "Report to the starting line in full gear. Dismissed." The hall erupted into motion. Cadets rushed to their quarters to gear up. Min walked calmly with Wu and "He thinks we'll fail first," Wu muttered angrily. "Let him think that," Min said quietly. "Words don't matter, results do." In the locker room, Min put on his combat gear piece by piece. The weight felt familiar and comfortable. He had trained with this equipment for months. He laced his boots carefully, making sure they fit perfectly. Blisters would be his enemy on a long run. Checked his water supply 3 times. I read that the species burns energy incredibly fast. They're strong, but they can't sustain effort for long periods. "And they are sprinters," Wu added, adjusting her gear straps. "Built for speed, not endurance." Min smiled slightly. His friends had done their research, but he said nothing. There was no point in talking about what might happen. Better to just run and see. 1 hour later, 50 cadets stood at the starting line. The course stretched ahead of them, beginning with a desert section under artificial suns that beat down with intense heat. Medical staff stood ready with emergency equipment. Instructors watched from elevated platforms. Raised one of his 4 arms. The trial of attrition begins now. Run until you cannot run anymore. There is no time limit. There is no mercy. Begin. The cadet surged forward, took an early lead with his long, powerful strides, flowed beside him like liquid silver, barely seeming to touch the ground, glided along, using mental focus to power through. The stronger species pushed to the front. Men started near the middle of the pack, running at a comfortable, steady pace. Nothing fancy, nothing impressive, just one foot in front of the other, breathing easily, conserving energy. Wu and ran beside him, matching his rhythm. "You're going slow," Wu said between breaths. "It's a long race," Min replied. "Start slow, finish strong." Around them, other cadets were already breathing hard. The desert heat was intense. Sand grabbed at their boots with each step. The weight of the combat gear pressed down on shoulders and backs. After the first hour, they entered the mountain section. The path became steep, winding upward through rocky terrain. Several of the species began to fall behind, their breathing systems struggling with the altitude change. Min's pace never changed. Uphill, downhill, flat ground, he ran the same steady rhythm. His grandfather had taught him this. "The mountain doesn't care if you're tired," the old man used to say. "Just keep moving. One step, then another step. That's all running is." Wu started to breathe harder on the climbs. His face turned red with effort, but they kept going, following Min's example. Up ahead was still leading, but his powerful strides had shortened slightly. His graceful flow had become more mechanical. His floating had lowered until his feet touched the ground more often. The instructors watched their monitors carefully. Something unexpected was happening. The humans were maintaining their initial pace exactly. Their heart rates were elevated but steady. Their body temperatures were rising but not dangerously. It was as if they had found a sustainable rhythm and locked into it. Frowned at his display. This was not what he had expected. Humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to fail first. But 3 hours into the trial, all 3 human cadets looked fine. Not fresh, not unstressed, but fine, still running, still steady. The cadets were starting to slow. They were breathing in gasps. Even the mentally disciplined were showing signs of physical exhaustion. But the humans just kept running. Leaned forward, studying the data more carefully. What was he missing about human physiology? What did these creatures have that let them keep going when stronger, faster species were beginning to fade? On the course, Min ran past a tactical checkpoint and logged his presence without breaking stride. Sweat poured down his face. His legs ached. His shoulders hurt from the gear weight. But he had felt worse on his long training runs back home. This was just another run, just another day of putting one foot in front of the other. His mind was calm. His breathing was controlled. Behind him, Wu smiled through her exhaustion. Ahead of him, stumbled slightly for the first time. The trial had only just begun. Hour 4 arrived with the swamp section. Thick mud sucked at boots with every step. The air became heavy and wet, hard to breathe. Strange artificial plants dripped warm water onto the running cadets. This environment was designed to break spirits and destroy muscles. The mighty was no longer in the lead. His massive legs, so powerful in short bursts, were betraying him now. Each step through the mud required enormous energy, and his body was burning through fuel faster than he could replace it. His breathing had become loud and harsh, like a struggling engine. Had slowed to a fraction of her earlier speed. Her species was built for explosive sprints, not sustained effort. Her legs trembled with each step. Sweat that her body could barely produce dripped from her silver skin. Were not meant for endurance. His mental discipline was impressive, but it could not change basic biology. His small body had limits that even his powerful mind could not overcome. He was still moving, but his floating had stopped completely. He walked now, forcing one foot forward, then the other. Men ran through the swamp at his same steady pace. The mud was annoying, but not impossible. His body had adapted to the heat and humidity. Sweat poured from his skin in rivers, cooling him efficiently. He was designed for this. Humans were designed for this. Beside him, Wu was struggling more now. Her face showed the strain, but she refused to quit. She had something to prove. Ran with gritted teeth, his engineering mind probably calculating exactly how much energy he had left and how far he could go. "How are you not tired?" Wu gasped at Min. "I am tired," he replied calmly. "But tired is just a feeling. Legs still work. Heart still beats, so I keep running." Around them, other cadets were in various states of exhaustion. The species had mostly dropped out by hour 3, their cooling systems overwhelmed. Several of the amphibious species had done well in the swamp but struggled earlier in the desert. Each species had their strengths and weaknesses. But the humans just kept running at that same, impossible, steady pace. In the observation room, instructor stood with other academy officials, watching the monitors in growing confusion. The medical readouts for the human cadets showed elevated stress, yes, but nothing critical. Their heart rates had settled into a sustainable zone. Their core temperatures were high but controlled through constant sweating. "How are they doing this?" one instructor asked. "They should have collapsed by now. Their muscle density is lower than, their cardiovascular system is smaller than. By all measurements, they should be among the first to fail." Said nothing. He was beginning to realize he had made a fundamental error in understanding Earth species. Humans were not weak. They were just different. Different in a way he had not anticipated. Hour 5 brought the ice field. Temperature dropped to well below freezing. Wind howled across open ground covered in slippery ice. Many cadets who had survived the heat now found themselves beaten by the cold. Took 3 more steps and then collapsed face first into the snow. His body had run out of fuel. Physiology could not sustain this level of effort. Medical teams rushed forward to help him. He was not injured, just completely exhausted. As they carried him away, looked back at the course. Through the swirling snow, he could see 3 figures still running. The humans, still at that same steady pace, still moving forward like machines that would never stop. Hour 6 arrived like a hammer falling. This was when most species hit their biological wall, the point where the body simply refused to continue no matter what the mind demanded. His legs gave out without warning. One moment she was running, the next she was lying in the snow, her muscles completely locked up. She had pushed past her limits long ago, running on pure determination. But determination could not change evolution. Stopped walking. His mental powers had kept him going far longer than his body should have allowed, but even telepathic discipline had limits. He stood swaying in the wind for a moment, then slowly sank to his knees. "I cannot continue," he said to no one in particular. His large eyes watched as the 3 humans ran past him, still running, still steady. How? All across the course, cadets were collapsing. Some were carried away by medical teams. Others limped to checkpoint stations and officially. Out of 50 cadets who had started, only 10 were still moving. And 3 of them were human. Min ran into the forest section feeling the cold air on his face. His legs ached deeply now. His shoulders burned from the gear weight. But these were sensations, not injuries. Pain was information. His body was telling him it was working hard, but not that it was damaged. He thought about his grandfather's stories, about ancient hunters from Earth who would chase deer for days until the animals collapsed from exhaustion, about marathon runners who could cover impossible distances, about something in human DNA that said, "Keep going," when every other species said, "Stop." Wu was falling behind now. She had pushed herself to incredible limits, far beyond what most human recruits could do, but she was approaching her breaking point. Her steps had become uneven. Her breathing was ragged. "Wu," Min called back to her. "No shame in stopping. You've already proved everything." She shook her head stubbornly, but 200 meters later, her legs wobbled and she had to slow to a walk. Then the walk became a stumble. Medical personnel met her with blankets and warm drinks. She had lasted 6 hours and 15 minutes, longer than 45 other cadets from species supposedly superior to humans. Ran beside Min in silence for another 30 minutes. Then he spoke quietly. "I need to stop soon. My knees are hurting badly." "Smart," Min said. "Don't injure yourself." "But you're going to keep going, aren't you?" asked. Min thought about it. His body was tired but functional. His mind was calm. The course was just a path forward, one foot then the other, nothing complicated about it. "Yes," he said simply, "I think I will." Nodded and kept running for another hour, determined to stay with his friend as long as possible. But at hour 7, his knees began to buckle. The engineering student knew when a system was about to fail. He slowed to a stop, breathing hard, and watched Min continue alone into the distance. Now only 8 cadets remained running. Min and 7 others from various species with natural endurance advantages. But even these 7 were showing serious signs of exhaustion. One collapsed 20 minutes later, then another. In the observation room, a medical officer named pulled up data on her screen. She was a thoughtful, scientific being who valued knowledge above pride. What she was seeing fascinated her. "Instructor," she said quietly, "I believe I understand what we're witnessing." "Explain," growled, still frustrated by his earlier assumptions. "Humans evolved as pursuit predators," began, showing graphs and charts. On Earth, early humans hunted by chasing animals for hours or even days until the prey collapsed from heat exhaustion. While other Earth predators were faster, humans could simply outlast them. They would run and run and run until their prey could run no more. She pulled up a comparison chart. Humans have several unique adaptations. First, they cool themselves through sweating over their entire body surface. No other species in the academy can do this as efficiently. Second, their breathing is independent of their stride, allowing them to control oxygen intake precisely. Third, they have a high number of slow-twitch muscle fibers designed for sustained effort rather than explosive power. Stared at the data. "You're saying humans are built for endurance." "Not just built for it," said softly. "Humans are endurance. It's their primary evolutionary advantage. On a planet where they were not the fastest, not the strongest, not the most dangerous, they became the species that simply never stopped chasing. They ran their prey to death, for days if necessary." The observation room fell silent. Every instructor was realizing the same thing. They had judged humans by the wrong standards. Strength, speed, mental power, these were impressive, but they were not everything. On the course, Min ran past the hour 8 checkpoint. 5 other cadets were still moving, including 2 instructors who had joined the run out of pride, determined to outlast at least one human. Min barely noticed them. His mind had entered a calm state. His body ran on automatic, one foot forward, then the other foot. Breathe in, breathe out. This was meditation in motion. This was what humans were made to do. Behind him, Academy records were being shattered. Ahead of him, the course continued endlessly. And Min kept running. Hour 8 marked the point where the trial stopped being a test and became something else entirely. Something that would be talked about in the Academy for generations. 5 cadets remained on the course. Min ran through the desert section again, the course repeating its loop. His uniform was soaked with sweat. His hair dripped water constantly, but his pace had not changed. Still steady, still controlled. Behind him ran 2 instructors, their purple skin dark with effort. They had joined the trial out of pride, unable to accept that a human might outlast their warrior species. But now, at hour 8, both were struggling badly. Their powerful muscles were designed for combat, not marathon running. Every step was agony. 2 other cadets from endurance-capable species were far behind, barely moving, but refusing to quit. Instructor watched from the observation room with growing amazement. The human had been running for 8 hours straight with almost no change in performance. His heart rate was elevated but stable. His body temperature was high but controlled. The sweat pouring from his skin was doing exactly what it was designed to do, cooling him efficiently. "This should not be possible," muttered. "But it is," replied, studying her medical readouts. "Look at his lactate levels. They're elevated but not critical. His body is processing the waste products of exercise almost as fast as he generates them. And look at this, his fat stores. He's burning fat for fuel now, which means he has hours of energy remaining." At hour 10, one of the instructors collapsed. His name was Or, and he was a decorated warrior who had fought in 3 campaigns. But his body simply could not continue. Medical teams carried him away, and he watched Min run past with something like awe in his eyes. The second instructor kept running. Pride drove him forward. He would not let a human outlast him. He would run until his heart stopped beating if necessary. But biology was not about pride. At hour 12, his legs gave out. He fell hard, unable to catch himself. As medical personnel helped him up, he looked down the course at Min's distant figure. "He's not even trying hard," whispered in shock. "Look at him, he's just running." And it was true. Min was not in obvious distress. He was tired, yes. Exhausted, yes. But he was not broken. He ran with the easy rhythm of someone who had done this many times before. The Academy record of 12 hours was broken. Alarms should have sounded. Celebrations should have begun. But everyone was too focused on what was happening to care about records. Now only 3 cadets remained. Min and 2 others from species with legendary endurance. But even these 2 were fatting fast. In the medical bay, Wu and watched the monitors in amazement. They had recovered from their runs and were now witnessing their friend make history. "Did you know he could do this?" Wu asked. Shook his head. "I knew he liked running. I knew he did marathons back on Earth. But this is something else." At hour 15, one of the remaining aAlien cadets stopped. She was from a species of desert dwellers with incredible stamina, but even she had reached her limit. She sat down in the sand and refused to move another step. The last aAlien cadet, a being from a high-gravity world, continued for another hour before his body shut down completely. Medical teams found him lying unconscious on the trail, his system overwhelmed. Now Min ran alone. The entire academy had stopped normal operations. Everyone was watching. Instructors, cadets, staff, all were glued to monitors or lining the course to see the human who would not stop. Hour 18 arrived with sunset on 7 Station. Artificial lights illuminated the course. Min ran through the mountain section, his shadow long behind him. His thoughts had become strange, drifting between past and present. He remembered being a child running along the beach with his grandfather. The old man had been a marathon runner in his youth. Our ancestors were hunters, his grandfather had told him. Not strong like tigers, not fast like deer, but they could run all day. They would chase an animal until it collapsed. That's in our blood, Min. When you run, you're doing what humans have done for millions of years. The memory faded and Min was back on the course. His legs moved automatically now. His mind was in a meditative state that experienced runners knew well. The zone. The place where pain became distant and the body just worked. In the observation room, word had spread beyond the academy. Galactic news services were picking up the story. Reporters were arriving. This was no longer just a training exercise. It was a revelation about an entire species. Had compiled a report about human evolution. She presented it to a room full of instructors and officials. Humans come from a planet with moderate temperatures and diverse terrain, she explained, showing images of Earth. They evolved as pursuit hunters in Africa. While other predators killed with strength or speed, humans killed with endurance. They would identify prey and simply chase it, for hours, for an entire day if necessary. She showed a video recreation, a human hunter jogging after an antelope. The antelope would sprint away, fast and powerful, but then it would have to stop, panting, overheating. The human would keep coming, slowly, steadily. The antelope would run again, stop again, run again. Eventually, after hours of this, the antelope would collapse from heat exhaustion, unable to run anymore. The human, barely breathing hard, would walk up to it. "This is what humans are," said quietly. "They are pursuit predators. They can regulate their body temperature through sweating. They can breathe independently of their stride. They have tendons in their legs that store and release energy efficiently. Their bodies can burn fat for fuel over long periods. They are built from the ground up to run for days if necessary." The room was silent. Every instructor was rethinking everything they knew about humans. "We judged them by our standards," said slowly. "We tested them on strength, speed, mental power, all things they are merely average at. But endurance, they are not just good at endurance, they are the endurance species." At hour 20, Min was running through a dream. He barely noticed what terrain section he was in anymore. Desert, mountain, swamp, ice, forest, they all blurred together. His body just kept moving. He thought about Earth's history, about persistence hunters tracking prey across continents, about the Tarahumara people of Mexico who could run 200 kilometers in a single day, about ultramarathon runners who raced across deserts for 100 miles without stopping, about something fundamental in human nature that said, "I can keep going." Hour 24 arrived with dawn. Min had been running for an entire day. He was moving slower now, but still moving. His pace had dropped from a run to more of a jog, but he had not stopped. Not once in 24 hours had he stopped moving forward. Wu and stood at a checkpoint with blankets and water. They wanted to be there when their friend came through. The entire academy lined the route now. Thousands of beings from dozens of species watched in silence. Min jogged past the checkpoint. His face was covered in dried salt from evaporated sweat. His eyes looked distant, focused on something far away. He barely seemed to notice the crowd. Wu called out to him. Min, you've run for a full day, you can stop now, you've proved everything. He looked at her and smiled slightly. Not done yet, he said, his voice rough. Still have legs, still have time. And he kept running. Stood at the checkpoint and watched the human jog away. Something had changed in the instructor's mind. He had spent years teaching that strength was power, that speed was victory, that mental discipline was mastery. But this human had taught him something new, that sometimes power was not about being the strongest or the fastest. Sometimes power was about being the one who was still standing when everyone else had fallen. How long will he go? Someone asked. Checked her monitors. His vitals are stable, exhausted but stable. Based on human performance records from Earth, he could potentially continue for another day or more. Another day. The words hung in the air like thunder. On the course, Min entered the forest section for the 5th time. Sunlight filtered through artificial trees. Birds that were not really birds sang. And a human who would not stop put one foot in front of the other, running alone, running still, running toward a finish line that seemed to have no end. Behind him, the galaxy was learning a new truth. Humans might not be the strongest, they might not be the fastest, but they would still be coming long after every other species had collapsed. And that was its own kind of terrifying. Hour 30 marked a moment that no one in the academy had prepared for. Min had been running for more than a full day and showed no intention of stopping. The trial that was supposed to last 6 to 12 hours had become something unprecedented. The news had spread across coalition space like wildfire. Human cadet runs for 30 hours without stopping was the headline on every major news feed. Ships arriving at 7 Station were greeted with the story. Diplomats, merchants, military officials, everyone was talking about the human who would not quit. On the course, Min had entered what experienced ultramarathon runners called the zone. His body had moved beyond normal exhaustion into a strange state where pain became distant and unimportant. His legs moved automatically. His breathing was steady. His mind floated between awareness and dream. He thought about the ocean back home, about running along the coast early in the morning when the world was quiet, about the feeling of sand under his feet and salt air in his lungs. Running had always been his meditation, his way of finding peace. This was just a longer run than usual. The academy had set up support stations every 5 kilometers now. Other human cadets volunteered to run sections with him, packing him, offering encouragement. A cadet named Bora ran beside him for an hour, talking about her home in Seoul. My mother asked me why I wanted to join the military, Bora said as they jogged together. I told her I wanted to prove that humans belonged in the galaxy, that we weren't weak. She looked at Min. You're proving that for all of us. Min shook his head slightly. Just running, just putting one foot forward. But it was more than that, and he knew it. Every step he took was changing how the galaxy viewed humanity. Every hour he continued was rewriting expectations. Hour 36 arrived, and the galactic media went into a frenzy. Reporters from dozens of species crowded the observation areas. Camera drones followed Min on the course. Scientists were frantically researching human physiology, trying to understand what they were witnessing. A news anchor from the network spoke to billions of viewers. What we're seeing challenges everything we thought we knew about Earth's dominant species. Humans were considered physically inferior, weak, fragile, but Cadet Min has been running for a day and a half, far exceeding the endurance of every other species in the trial. Another reporter interviewed instructor. You trained these cadets. Did you expect this? Was honest. No, I believed humans were the weakest species in the academy. I was wrong. I judged them by the wrong standards. Humans are not weak. They are simply different, and their difference is more powerful than I imagined. In the medical bay, Wu and watched the coverage with pride and worry. They knew Min was pushing himself to incredible limits. Should we try to make him stop? Wu asked. Shook his head. You know Min, once he commits to something, he finishes it. He'll run until he physically cannot run anymore. On the course, Min jogged through the ice field section. Hour 40 had just passed. His body was operating on autopilot now. His conscious mind had retreated to a quiet place while his subconscious handled the running. He remembered his grandfather's funeral. The old man had been 90 years old and still jogging 3 times a week. Never stop moving, he had told Min the day before he died. The moment you stop, you start dying. So keep moving. Always keep moving. Min had carried his grandfather's ashes to the top of their favorite mountain, running the whole way. It had taken 6 hours. At the summit, he scattered the ashes while the sun set. Then he ran back down in the dark. That had been hard. This was harder, but the principle was the same: keep moving, one step, then another. Hour 42 brought another dawn to 7 Station. Min had been running for almost 2 full days. Other human cadets had organized themselves into a support rotation. Every hour, fresh runners would join him for a lap, keeping him company, making sure he stayed hydrated and fed. A cadet named Min ran beside him through the forest section. The whole galaxy is watching you, she said. You're a hero. Just tired, Min replied, his voice barely a whisper, but he smiled slightly. Very tired. You can stop any time, Min said gently. You've already done the impossible. Min considered this. Could he stop? Yes. His body was exhausted but not damaged. He could walk off the course right now and no one would think less of him. But something in him refused. Not yet. Not done yet, just a little farther, just a little longer. In the observation room, monitored Min's vital signs constantly. His body has adapted to the sustained stress, she reported. His system has found a balance. He's burning fat and a small amount of muscle for fuel. His heart is working hard but not dangerously. His brain activity shows signs of a meditative state. How much longer can he continue? An Academy official asked. Pulled up records from Earth. Humans have completed races lasting 6 days with minimal sleep. The Tarahumara people are known to run 200 kilometers in under 24 hours. The current record for continuous running on Earth is 11 days, though that was on flat, controlled terrain with support. The room fell silent again. 11 days. The number seemed impossible. I'm not saying this human will run for 11 days, added quickly. But his species is capable of truly extraordinary endurance when properly trained and motivated. Hour 48 marked 2 full days. Min had been running for 48 hours straight. His pace had slowed significantly. He was barely jogging now, more of a fast walk. But he had not stopped. Not once had he stopped moving forward. The Academy course was now lined with beings from every species represented at the station. They stood in silence, watching the human pass. Some held signs of support. Others simply stared in amazement. A group of young cadets watched Min jog past. One whispered to another, "My father told me we're the strongest warriors in the galaxy." "We are strong," his friend replied. "But humans are something else." The who had collapsed at hour 6 stood among the spectators. He watched Min with deep respect. "I judged him by my standards," said quietly. "I thought strength was everything, but he has shown me a different kind of strength. The strength to simply not quit." The who had collapsed at hour 5 stood nearby. Her species valued speed and grace above all. "We run fast," she said, "but he runs forever. I wonder which is more valuable." At a checkpoint, Academy administrators debated whether to end the trial. "He's proved his point," one argued. "We should stop this before he hurts himself." But disagreed. "Look at him. He's not running out of pride or stubbornness anymore. He's in a place beyond that. This is what his species does. This is what they are. Let him finish on his own terms." Min jogged through the desert section as the sun climbed high again. Hour 50 had just passed. His mind wandered between memory and present. He thought about his first marathon, how hard it had been, how he had wanted to quit at kilometer 30, but he had kept going and finished. That taught him something important. The wanting to quit and the actual quitting were different things. You could want to stop and still choose to continue. That choice, that decision to take one more step even when everything hurt, that was what separated humans from their prey millions of years ago. That was what made humans human. Other cadets ran with him now. They talked to him, encouraged him, made sure he drank water and ate energy gels. Woo and took turns packing him, proud of their friend, worried but amazed. 24 more hours, said as they jogged together. Just one more day to 72 hours. You can do it. Min nodded slowly. One more day. That seemed possible. Everything seemed possible if you just kept moving forward. Behind him, the galaxy watched and learned. Ahead of him, the course continued. And somewhere deep in his DNA, millions of years of evolution told him to keep running. So he did. Hour 60 arrived with a clarity that cut through Min's exhaustion. He had been running for 2.5 days. His body should have quit long ago, but it had not. His legs still moved. His heart still beat. His lungs still pulled in air. The course had become familiar now. Desert, mountain, swamp, ice field, forest. He had traveled through each section dozens of times. He knew every slope, every turn, every difficult spot. The course was no longer an obstacle. It was just the path beneath his feet. Other human cadets ran with him in shifts, making sure he was never alone. A cadet named Dong paced him through the mountain section. "The entire coalition is talking about you," Dong said. "Earth's embassy has been flooded with messages. Humans everywhere are celebrating." Min barely heard him. His mind was deep inside itself now, in that place where only the running existed. Words came from far away. The world seemed distant and dreamlike. But his legs kept moving, always moving. In the observation room, medical staff monitored him constantly. Had barely slept in 3 days, watching every vital sign, ready to stop the trial if anything became dangerous. "His body has adapted completely," she reported too. "He's in a state of sustained effort that I've never seen in any other species. His heart rate is elevated but stable. His temperature is high but controlled. His system has found an equilibrium." Studied the monitors. In 3 days, the instructor had learned more about humans than in years of teaching them. What will this mean for humanity's role in the coalition? "Everything," replied simply. "When the galaxy learns what humans are truly capable of, they will never be underestimated again." Hour 66 brought sunset again. Min jogged through the forest section as shadows grew long. His pace was slow now, barely faster than a walk, but it had not stopped. In 66 hours, he had not stopped once. He thought about Earth, about home, about running trails he loved, about friends and family, about his mother who used to worry when he ran long distances. "Why do you do this to yourself?" she would ask. Because it was in him to run. because his ancestors had run across continents chasing prey, exploring new lands, because stopping was not in his nature. Humans moved, humans explored, humans endured. That was the answer. Hour 70 arrived with the third dawn. Men had been running for nearly 3 full days. The entire academy had gathered to watch. Classes were canceled. Normal operations had stopped. Everyone wanted to witness the final hours. Wu ran beside him, tears in her eyes. 2 more hours, Min, just 2 more hours to 72. You're almost there. He looked at her, his eyes were distant but aware. Going to finish, he said, each word an effort. Said I would, so I will. That was so perfectly Min that Wu laughed through her tears. Of course he would finish. He said he would. That was enough. Took over at hour 71, running the second-to-last hour with his friend. The engineers calculated your total distance, he said. You've run 489 kilometers. That's farther than most species can travel in a week. Min smiled slightly. His grandfather would have been proud. The old man had never run that far, but he would have understood. He would have known why his grandson kept going when stopping would have been easier. Hour 72 approached. The final hour. Min entered the desert section for the last time as dawn light turned the sand golden. Every being in the academy lined the course now. Thousands of spectators stood in respectful silence. Instructor stood at the final checkpoint. The warrior who had once dismissed humans as weak now waited to see one complete the impossible. Other human cadets ran the final kilometer with Min Bora, Min, Dong, and dozens more surrounded him as he approached the finish. They did not run ahead or behind. They ran beside him, as equals, as friends, as fellow humans who understood what he represented. The checkpoint appeared ahead. The timer showed 72 hours exactly. Min had run for 3 full days without stopping. Not once had he quit. Not once had he given up. He crossed the line and the timer stopped. For a moment there was complete silence. Then applause erupted, not just from humans but from every species present. Warriors clapped their massive hands together. Cadets whistled their approval. Even the stoics showed signs of emotion. Min took 3 more steps and then his legs finally gave out. He collapsed to his knees, then to his side, unable to move another centimeter. Medical teams rushed forward immediately. But he was smiling. Despite the exhaustion, despite the pain, despite everything, he was smiling. Done, he whispered, finished. Medical staff surrounded him, checking vitals, providing oxygen, starting IV fluids. But the medical officer who had watched him for 3 days knew he was not in danger. He was exhausted, yes. Completely depleted, yes. But not damaged. His body had done exactly what it was designed to do. Humans endured. Wu and knelt beside their friend as medical staff worked. You crazy idiot, Wu said, laughing and crying at the same time. You actually did it. Had to, Min mumbled, his eyes already closing. Said I would. They carried him to the medical bay on a stretcher. As they passed through the academy, every cadet and instructor stood at attention. It was a salute of respect, the kind given to warriors who had done something extraordinary. 1 week later, Min woke up in the medical bay feeling surprisingly good. His body had recovered faster than expected, explained that humans healed quickly from exhaustion. Their bodies were designed to endure repeated stress. The trial results were posted throughout the academy. Trial of attrition final results. Average completion time, 5.4 hours. Previous academy record, 12 hours warrior. New record, 72 hours human cadet. Total distance, 489 kilometers. But the numbers did not tell the real story. The story was how every species in the Academy now looked at humans differently. The story was how galactic military planners were revising their understanding of Earth's capabilities. The story was how a quiet runner from Korea had changed the galaxy's perception of his entire species. Instructor visited Min in the medical bay. The warrior stood silently for a moment, then spoke. "I owe you an apology, cadet. I judged your species by my own standards. I believed strength was everything. You taught me that endurance is its own form of power, perhaps the most important form." Min sat up in bed. "You're not wrong about strength, instructor. Are incredibly strong, are incredibly fast, are incredibly intelligent. Every species has gifts." "And humanity's gift?" asked. "We don't stop," Min said simply. "We're not the best at anything, but we can keep going when everyone else has quit. Our ancestors hunted by chasing prey for days. We crossed oceans in tiny boats. We climbed mountains just to see what was on the other side. When you tell a human something is impossible, we hear difficult. And difficult just means it takes longer." Nodded slowly. "The coalition needs that. Warriors who do not quit, species that endure. Earth's contribution to our military may be more valuable than we realized." After left, Wu and came to visit with food from the cafeteria. They talked and laughed about the trial, about how the aAlien Cadets had reacted, about the galactic news coverage. "You're famous now," said. "There are articles about you on every news feed." Min shrugged. "I just ran. Anyone could have done it." "No," Wu said firmly. "Not anyone. You did it. You showed them what humans are." 3 months later, Min stood in front of a new class of cadets. He had been asked to teach survival and endurance training. The class was mixed, humans and aliens learning together. "Every species has strengths," he told them. "Strength, speed, intelligence. You are all gifted in your own ways." He paused. "Humanity's gift is simpler. We endure. We persist. We keep going when stopping would be easier." A young cadet raised one massive hand. "Instructor Min, is it true you still run every morning?" Min smiled. "Every morning, 10 kilometers before breakfast. Would anyone like to join me tomorrow?" Several hands went up, human and alien both. After class, Min walked through the academy grounds. He passed the course where he had run for 3 days. It looked ordinary now, just paths and terrain sections. But he knew what it represented. It represented the moment the galaxy learned that humans belonged. Not because they were the strongest or fastest but because when everyone else stopped, humans kept going. And that made all the difference. Min began his evening run, jogging easily through the station corridors. Other cadets nodded respectfully as he passed. Some joined him for a few kilometers. The quiet runner from Korea had taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. And as he ran through the artificial sunset of 7 Station, one foot in front of the other, breathing easily, Min thought about his grandfather's words one more time. "Never stop moving. The moment you stop, you start dying." So he kept running because that's what humans did. They endured, they persisted, they survived. And they never, ever stopped.